back to the Imaginary Gallery. It's TJ, your host. It's time for a viewer question. This one comes from Holographic Multiverse, which reminded me of a book that I own, Holographic Universe. I think Multiverse is probably the more accurate title. I've consulted the experts and will be using an article I found called The Narcissistic Family Tree. It can be pretty and decaying at the same time. As a reference point, it's written by Carol McBride, PhD, The Legacy of Distorted Love, which I'll include a link below. The author states that clinical experience and research show that the adult children of narcissists have a hard time putting their finger on what's wrong in their lives because denial is rampant within the narcissist family system. The typical adult from a narcissistic family is filled with unacknowledged anger, feels like a hollow person, feels inadequate and defective, suffers from periodic anxiety and depression, and has no clue about how he or she became that way, which comes from Pressman and Pressman, the narcissistic family. The article goes on to state that it's common for adult children of these creatures to enter treatment with emotional symptoms or relationship issues, but at the same time they display a lack of awareness of the deeper etiology or cause. The narcissistic cluster B creature family hides profound pain. She mentions how these types of families tend to operate according to an unspoken set of rules. The children learn to live with these crazy rules, but they never stop being confused and being pained by them, for these rules block their own emotional access to their parents. They basically become invisible. They're not heard, seen, or nurtured. Tragically, this set of rules allows the parents to have no boundaries with the children and to use or abuse them as they see fit. The following are some common dynamics of this profoundly dysfunctional intergenerational system. She tells us to keep in mind there are always degrees of dysfunction on a spectrum, depending on the level of the narcissism within the parents. Number one would be secrets. The family secret is that these parents are not meeting the children's emotional needs, or that they're abusive in some way. This is the norm in this type of family. The message that's sent to the children is, don't tell the outside world, pretend everything's fine. Number two is image. This type of family is all about the image. They want to send a message of, we are bigger, better, have no problems, and must put on the face of perfection. Children get the messages, what would the neighbors think? What would the relatives think? What would our friends think? These are common fears in the family. Quote, always put a smile on that pretty face. End quote. Negative messages. Children are given spoken and unspoken messages that get internalized. Typically,
you're not good enough.
You don't measure up.
You're valued for what you do rather than who you are.
Number four, lack of parental hierarchy. In a healthy family, there's a strong parental hierarchy in which the parents are in charge and shining love, light, and guidance and direction down to these kids. In these creature families, this hierarchy does not exist. The children are there to serve parental needs. Number five, lack of emotional tune-in. These creatures, as parents, lack the ability to emotionally tune into their kids. They can't feel or show empathy or unconditional love. They're typically critical and judgmental. Number six, lack of effective communication. The most common means of communication in narcissistic families is triangulation. Information is not direct. It's given to one party about the other in hopes that the information will get back to the party it's about. Family members talk about each other to other members of the family, but don't confront each other directly. This creates passive-aggressive behavior, tensions, and mistrust. When communication is direct, it will end in some kind of form of anger or rage. Number seven, unclear boundaries. There are few boundaries in this type of family. The children's feelings are not considered important. Private diaries get read. Physical boundaries are not kept, and emotional boundaries are not respected. The right to privacy typically is not a part of this type of family's history. Number eight, one parent narcissistic, the other is orbiting. If one parent's narcissistic, it's common for the other parent to revolve around the narcissist to keep the marriage together. A lot of times the other parent has redeeming qualities to offer the children, but is tied up meeting the needs of the creature spouse, leaving the children's needs unmet. There's really nobody there for them. Number nine, siblings are not encouraged to be close to one another. In a healthy family, we would encourage our kids to love each other and be close. In these creature families, the children are pitted against each other and taught competition. There's a constant comparison of who's better and who's not. Some are favored or seen as the golden child, and others become the scapegoat for a parent's projected negative feelings. Siblings in narcissistic families rarely grow up feeling emotionally connected to one another. Number 10, feelings. Feelings are denied and are not discussed. Children are not taught to embrace their emotions and process them in any type of realistic way. They're taught to stuff it down and repress them and told that their feelings just don't matter. The parents are typically not in touch with their own feelings and therefore project them onto others. This causes a lack of accountability and a lack of honesty, as well as other psychological disorders. If we don't process feelings, they do leak out in other unhealthy ways, as I've told many people. Don't bury those feelings, deal with them, otherwise there'll be a problem elsewhere. Number 11, not good enough messages. These messages come across loud and clear in this kind of family. Some parents actually speak this out in many different ways. Others just model it to the kids. Even if they display arrogant and boastful behavior, under the veneer of a narcissist is a self-loathing psyche, and that gets passed on to the kids. Number 12, dysfunction, obvious or covert. In these types of families, the dynamics can be seen or disguised. The dysfunction displayed in violent and abusive homes is usually obvious, but emotional and psychological abuse, as well as neglectful parenting, are often hidden. While the drama is not displayed as openly to the outside world, it is just as, if not more, damaging to the kids. She then states that reviewing these dynamics, it's easy to see how this kind of family can look pretty on the outside, but decaying at the same time. If you recognize your family in this description, know that there's help and recovery. We can't change the past, but we can take control of now. We do not have to be defined by the wounds in our family system. As Mark Twain defines the optimist, she sees the recovering adult child, a person who travels on nothing from nowhere to happiness. We can create new life that will flow through us to the future and stop the legacy of distorted love learned in this type of family. If we choose recovery, we can defy intergenerational statistics. We can! If one has grown up in a narcissistic family, it makes them very susceptible to getting into a relationship with the same type of person over time. They may go on dates with one person who's genuinely friendly with no disordered characteristics, and they're likely to find that type of person boring, uninteresting, and they'll go after the next one that comes along that happens to be a cluster B creature, and there'll be some kind of connection. Usually the love bombing pulls them in, and they think of their family history and how their opinions didn't matter and how they had to pretend to be perfect, and here's somebody who thinks that they're perfect as they are, and that's a good opening for them to get involved. However, once they're hooked in and the narcissistic traits begin showing, one thing that can keep such a target involved is that although they begin to see the same types of behaviors that we just covered, they can consciously realize that such things are bad or wrong. At the same time, these same characteristics are familiar, so it's quite easy for them to stick around, and in some cases even think that sticking around with this type of person will give them the opportunity to right any wrongs from their growing up period by trying to fix the situation, because they remember the beautiful love bombing at the idealization phase, and when devalue begins, they feel like they've got to pull it all together and either consciously or unconsciously and or believe that they've done something wrong to this wonderful person who was so great, and they think they can try to fix it. You can't. But the thing is, it's like abuse. If you were abused growing up, you know abuse. You know the language of abuse, how it looks, how it feels. You may know it's wrong and bad, but it's part of your experience. So if you meet a new person, they're perfect and nice in the beginning, but then it later escalates into abusiveness, it's easier to stick around and try to fix it, even though it's endangering your life. And as far as the golden child and the scapegoat or black sheep, I've seen example of that in a movie called Welcome to the Dollhouse, which had the mother and father and the two girls. One girl was the golden child, who was a little ballet dancer, and the mother thought she was so beautiful. But the other one, Dawn, was the black sheep scapegoat. So anytime anything went wrong, she was blamed. When the little girl was being selfish, she'd react against it and then be punished for her behavior, and the little golden child ran around freely, flitting her hands up and down. Basically, the children are seen by the parents as objects, just like when you're dating one. The kids are objects that are there to make the parents look good in front of others. Doesn't matter what the kids want, what they're interested in.
You will behave and act this way in front of other people?
And that can be difficult to accept, especially if you're a child trying to grow up and be a healthy person. It kind of makes it difficult because you're sent that message.
Who you are isn't good enough. You've got to pretend and be this way when we're in public, so everyone thinks that you're this way and that I'm a great parent.
Well, the point of this is, either way, whether you're the scapegoat or the golden child, in these types of families, it's common for the parents to insist that these kids put on a perfect act in public and punish them if they don't. And if the golden child acts up, probably blame the scapegoat for it.
It's your fault. You shouldn't have bothered her, so she did what she did.
Which is unhealthy. And as far as we covered the no boundaries, exactly, they go through diaries, there is no respect for feelings, and all of that can eat away at the insides of the child. So they're starving for the love bombing when they grow up and meet a love bomber, narcissistic creature. The thing is, regular people who have not been involved with such things, not been through disordered family, they may meet a narcissistic creature and quickly recognize red flags and speed out the door, but there's no guarantee that they will. They can be healthy and still fall for the fake charms of these creatures. But I've witnessed examples of the types of games these families play with one another. There's one particular example I can think of where there was a mother who had several children, all from different fathers, which, as far as I'm concerned, that alone would not really be a model of stability. And of course, the child of this mother was a very loose whore. Probably learned it from its parent, because she went through several different men, finally settled on one, but that gives a background, and we know that whether we think it's good or bad, kids tend to emulate what they see growing up. That's the only reference point they have. Sure, they can watch TV and movies, but that's somebody else's life and fiction. In their own, they've seen what goes on, but they know it's not good, so they've learned to pretend to be a great person while multiple partners are involved, none knowing about the other. They also can play games, childish games, which we've covered before. At the age of 7, they pretty much have their personality traits down. That doesn't mean they won't change some things or grow in other ways, but their basic building blocks are there. And I knew a case where the kid called the mother, and of course was phony.
Hi, nice to talk to you.
And the mother's first response was,
"What do you need?"
The creature had said,
"Oh, nothing. I was just calling to say hi."
Which was a lie, of course. And a few moments later, the real reason came out.
"I need $100 for such and such. Could I borrow that from you?"
Same family, the mother had a birthday and the kid didn't acknowledge it, forgot about it, wasn't aware of it, which is easy to do. Lots of dates to remember unless you have it stored in your phone. It forgot to call her and say happy birthday. Well, guess what happened? Its birthday came around, and guess who didn't call it? These are like passive-aggressive games, and of course, if questioned,
"Oh, I forgot. I'm sorry."
And the creature might say, "Oh,
You just did that because I forgot yours."
"Oh, that's not true. Really, I've been busy. I had this and..."
pity play, whatever."
I am the narcopath. Yes, I am.
Oh yes, on several occasions you pointed out things I've said that didn't seem to add up is what you said, which I don't have a clue what you're talking about. I use phrases and words to get the things I want. I don't bother thinking about the details. If I want something from you tonight, for example, I may say something to you tonight that, "Oh, I just love children so much. I feel so sorry for those ones over there. They look like they don't have any parents. Speaking of that, they're probably hungry, and I'm hungry too. Can I get some ice cream? Oh, I'd love that." And it worked. And then the next month, you see me tossing rotten eggs at a bunch of kids. The same kids, actually. And you have the nerve to ask about it. It's like, last time it was because I wanted ice cream. This time, I want to eat those kids' asses. So don't behold me to things I said before, because I don't think them out, because they're not real. I memorize lines from movies, from TV, from other people, from other targets. It gets me through. And again, I can't be concerned with the details. That's your job. Besides, I don't know what you're talking about when you try to accuse me of contradicting myself, whatever that means. You're a contradiction. I'm not. I guess the cat's out of the bag. You can go through our history and pretty much come up with the conclusion that I like to lie. Well, so what? So I do. I like to lie. Lying gives me what I want. I don't sit there worrying about the consequences of my lies like you do. You are a fool. If you can get what you want for free, then tell the lie. That's the way I do it. It's pointless otherwise because you won't get the things you want. Who cares if I've lied? They don't need to know about that. All I want is what I want for the moment, and I'm gonna get it. Now sometimes I tell the truth. Like when I was a damsel in distress for real. When that train left without letting me board, it was true. I got there late because I was drinking, and I passed out. But I told the conductor the next train that train just left without me. How dare they? Oh. And I put on an act, and guess what they did? They reeled it back for me. Lying gets you places. Keep that in mind.
Yes, I just talked to them both. They're stupid. They're just jealous because I'm prettier and my teeth are bigger. Don't worry, they'll get theirs. How dare they betray me by saying such terrible things? They'll get what's coming to them.
Well, look at you. Don't you think you're just such a smart person? I heard that you found out who my fiancé was, and you tried to tell him all kinds of lies about me. About how I cheated on you and told you you're the only one and wanted to marry you while I was making love to the bartender down the street when you had to work. Well, honey, it doesn't matter if any of that's true. My new lover thinks you're crazy. He says if you ever come back to him and say anything more to him, he's going to punch your lights out. Those are his words, not mine. Mind your own business. He doesn't believe you, even though what you say might have a ring of truth to it. But he doesn't need to know that. So keep your mouth shut. You weren't good enough for me, so lay off. Maybe he is. You're just jealous. You wish you were like me. It's your loss. So drop it and don't you say another word to him or else.
Why do birds suddenly appear every time you are near? Just like me, they long to be close to you. Why do stars fall down from the sky every time you walk by? Just like me, they long to be close to you. On the day that you were born, the angels got together, decided to create a dream come true. Sun that brings the moon to sing a hand, the moon shines not blue. That is why all the girls around follow you all around. Just like me, they long to be